can't marry you. The engagement is over.
The first thing Shin Joochan felt when he woke up was pain. Not the sharp, screaming kind, something worse. A deep, grinding ache that lived in his bones and refused to leave. His eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. The fluorescent lights above him burned white and merciless. He tried to move his legs. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. Panic hit him like a fist to the chest. He tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. Tubes ran from his arms. Machines beeped steadily beside him. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and something metallic he didn't want to name. "Mr. Shin," a voice, female, calm, professional. "Please don't try to move. You've been in a serious accident." A doctor appeared at his bedside. White coat, tired eyes, the careful expression of someone who delivered bad news many times before. "Where?" His throat was raw. The word came out like sandpaper. "Where am I?" "Seoul National University Hospital. You've been unconscious for 2 weeks." She paused, and in that pause, Joochan felt his entire world shift. "Do you remember what happened?" "The crash." It came back in pieces, like broken glass cutting through fog. He'd been driving back from the Incheonport meeting. Late afternoon, the sky threatening rain. His driver, Min-seok, at the wheel like always. They were discussing the shipping contract, the numbers that didn't quite add up, the new investor who seemed too eager to close the deal. Then the rain started. Heavy, sudden, the kind that turns highways into rivers. Min-seok had pressed the brake as they approached the curve. Nothing happened. Joochan remembered the exact moment Min-seok realized it. The way his hands had gripped the wheel tighter, the sharp inhale of breath, the single word he'd said, "Sir." They'd hit the barrier at full speed. The sound was like the world ending, metal screaming, glass exploding, the violent physics of a 2-ton vehicle deciding to become something else entirely. Joochan remembered the spinning, the weightlessness, the moment of crystal clarity where he thought, "This is how I die." Then nothing. Until now. "Min-seok," Joochan said, his voice cracked. "My driver, where is he?" The doctor's expression told him everything before she spoke. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Shin. He didn't survive the impact." The words landed like stones in deep water. Min-seok was dead. Min-seok, who had worked for him for 6 years. Min-seok, who had 3 daughters and a wife who made the best kimchi Joochan had ever tasted. Min-seok, who always kept mints in the center console and listened to trot music when he thought Joochan wasn't paying attention. Gone. "Your injuries were extensive," the doctor continued. Her voice was gentle but firm, the way doctors speak when they need you to understand something terrible. "Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, severe spinal trauma. We had to perform emergency surgery twice. You're very lucky to be alive." "My legs," Joochan said. The words felt heavy in his mouth. "Why can't I feel my legs?" The doctor's pause was answer enough. The spinal cord injury was severe. The damage was at the T11, T12 level. We've done everything we can, but... She took a breath. "Mr. Shin, the paralysis is likely permanent. There's a small possibility of partial recovery with extensive therapy, but you need to prepare yourself for the probability that you won't walk again." The room became very quiet. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor was beeping. Outside, Seoul continued its endless motion. People walking, cars moving, life happening to everyone who hadn't just been told their body was broken beyond repair. "I want to see the accident report," Joochan said. "Mr. Shin, you should rest." "I want to see the accident report, now." The doctor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The police report arrived 3 hours later, delivered by a detective with a carefully neutral expression. Joochan read it twice, then a third time, his mind working through the details with the cold precision that had built his empire. Vehicle brake system failure. Preliminary investigation suggests mechanical malfunction. No evidence of external tampering found at the scene. But Joochan knew his cars. He maintained them obsessively. The Mercedes had been serviced 2 weeks before the accident. Every system had been perfect. Brake lines didn't just fail. Not on a car that cost more than most people's apartments. Not on a car that was inspected monthly by the best mechanics in Seoul. Someone had wanted him dead. And they'd killed Min Seok to make it happen. Jiyoung came to visit on the 3rd day. She arrived in a cloud of expensive perfume, carrying flowers that a nurse took away to put in water. She wore white, always white, like she was practicing for something, and her smile was the same one she wore to charity galas and board meetings. Beautiful, perfect, empty. "Joochan," she said, and bent to kiss his forehead. Her lips were cold. "I've been so worried." "I'm alive," he said. "Thank God." She pulled up a chair and sat with her hands folded in her lap, the picture of the devoted fiancé. "The doctors said it was very serious. 2 weeks, they said you might not wake up." "But I did." "Yes, you did." Something flickered across her face. Not quite relief, something else. "Have they told you about your recovery timeline?" "They've told me I won't walk again." The words hung between them like smoke. Jiyoung's smile didn't move. "But there's a chance, isn't there? With therapy, with time." "A small chance, very small." "Still a chance." She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were perfectly manicured, the engagement ring he'd given her catching the fluorescent light. "We'll get through this together. The Geum family has the best medical connections. We'll find you the best therapists, the best facilities." "Why?" Joochan asked. She blinked. "What? Why would you do that?" "Because I love you, because we're getting married, because—" She stopped, reading something in his face. "Joochan, you've been through a terrible trauma. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking very clearly." He looked at her, really looked at her. At the careful distance in her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she held his hand like it was something fragile that might break if she squeezed too hard. "You're already calculating, aren't you? How this changes things. How long you can wait before it becomes obvious." "That's a horrible thing to say." "But it's true." She pulled her hand back. For a moment her mask slipped, and he saw what was underneath. Not cruelty, exactly, just cold, practical assessment. The same look she gave quarterly reports and investment portfolios. "I should let you rest," she said, standing. "I'll come back tomorrow." But her visits became shorter after that, less frequent. The flowers stopped coming. Her text messages grew brief and formal. She always had a reason, a family obligation, a business meeting, a prior commitment she'd forgotten about. Joochan watched her pull away, with the same coldness he'd felt reading the accident report. He didn't try to stop her. He was too busy learning how to survive in a body that didn't work the way it used to. 8 months later, Shin Joochan returned to public life. The Shin Capital Charity Gala at the Lot Grand Hotel was meant to be his reappearance. His first major public event since the accident. A statement to Seoul's business world that he was still here, still powerful, still very much in control of his empire. He rolled through the main doors in his wheelchair, custom-made titanium frame, the best mobility equipment money could buy, and felt the entire room shift its attention toward him. The silence was immediate and absolute. Not the good kind. This was the silence of 500 people all thinking the same thing. He's broken. He's finished. Joochan kept his face perfectly neutral as he moved through the crowd. He'd practiced this. Spent hours with his physical therapist learning to control the chair with the same precision he used to control boardrooms. His suit was perfect, his posture straight, his expression carved from ice. But he could feel their pity like weight pressing down on his shoulders. At the center of the ballroom, Jiyoung was waiting. She wore ivory chiffon that floated around her like clouds. Her diamond engagement ring caught every light. Around her stood a carefully arranged collection of powerful people, lawyers, executives, politicians, journalists, everyone who mattered in Seoul's elite circles. This wasn't random. This was planned. Joochan felt his jaw tighten as he approached. She'd chosen this venue deliberately. Maximum visibility, maximum impact. Jiyoung picked up a microphone from the event coordinator's table and tapped it once. The room went silent again. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said, her voice warm and gracious. "I have an announcement to make." Joochan stopped his wheelchair 10 feet away from her. "After careful consideration and many difficult conversations," Jiyoung continued, "I've decided to end my engagement to Chairman Shin Joochan." The silence became something physical, something you could touch. "My family has always valued strength," she said, each word perfectly chosen, perfectly delivered. "It would be unfair to both of us for me to commit to a future that has become so uncertain." She smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Joochan had ever seen a human face do. "I wish him nothing but the best in his recovery." She removed the engagement ring, placed it on a silver tray beside her champagne glass. The sound of diamond hitting crystal echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against marble, leaving him there in front of 500 witnesses to his humiliation. The whispers started immediately. Phones appeared, heads bent together. The calculations began, investors reassessing their positions, competitors sensing weakness, everyone adjusting their understanding of the Shin Empire's stability. Joochan sat perfectly still in his wheelchair and watched his world begin to collapse. Zainab Okoro saw the whole thing from her position near the marble column. She wasn't supposed to be paying attention. She was hired to translate Korean to English, English to Korean, facilitating smooth communication between international guests. Be professional, be invisible, do the job and go home. But there was something about the scene unfolding in front of her that made invisibility impossible. She watched the man in the wheelchair, watched his face as his fiancée destroyed him in front of everyone who mattered, watched for the crack, the break, the moment when the humiliation would show. It never came. His expression remained absolutely still. Not blank, that would have been easier. This was controlled, deliberate, the face of someone who'd seen this coming and had decided not to give anyone the satisfaction of his pain. What got to Zainab wasn't his vulnerability. It was his dignity. The woman in ivory, Jiyoung, Zainab had translated enough conversations tonight to know exactly who she was, walked past without a backward glance. The crowd parted for her like water, everyone eager to be associated with the winner and distant from the loser. Zainab felt something hot and sharp twist in her chest. She'd seen this before. Different continent, different context, same basic architecture of cruelty. People smiling while they destroyed you, calling it practical or realistic or just business while they took everything you'd built and set it on fire. The man in the wheelchair turned toward the exit. As he passed near her column, their eyes met for a fraction of a second. She didn't look away. Didn't give him pity or curiosity or any of the things everyone else in this room was giving him. She just looked at him like he was a person who'd survived something terrible and was still here, still breathing, still fighting. Something flickered in his expression, not quite gratitude, more like recognition. Then he was gone, his security team trailing behind him, leaving Zainab standing in a ballroom full of people who were already discussing him like he was dead. The knock on her apartment door came at midnight. Zainab had been home for 2 hours, her translation notes scattered across her kitchen table, trying to focus on the invoice she owed the lot grand. She had 3 bills overdue, her father's visa renewal coming up in 8 weeks, and approximately 400,000 won in her bank account. She opened the door to find a man in a charcoal suit. He was compact and precise, with eyes that seemed to calculate everything in the room within seconds. His posture suggested he was always ready for things to go wrong. "Miss Zainab Okoro," he said, not a question. "My name is Kang Hyunwoo. I'm the Chief Operations Officer of Shin Capital Group." Zainab leaned against the doorframe. "It's midnight." "The chairman keeps unusual hours." "And you have my address because tonight, in a room full of 500 people, You were the only person who looked at Chairman Shin with something other than pity or calculation. He paused. That kind of clarity is rare, and currently very valuable. Zainab studied him, then stepped back and let him in. He sat at her kitchen table without asking, didn't waste time on small talk. Shin Capital Group needs a wife for the chairman. Immediately. Zainab blinked. Excuse me. Tonight's event wasn't just a personal humiliation. It was a coordinated financial attack. Before morning, our major investors will receive calls suggesting the chairman's judgment is impaired, that the company is failing, that his disability makes him unfit to lead. Kang Hyunwoo placed a folder on her table. A marriage, even a contractual one, restores the perception of stability, sends a message that he has a future worth investing in. And you're asking me because? Because you're educated, because you stayed calm during a public disaster, because your father's visa renewal is pending, and our legal team has identified some complications that could be resolved with the right connections. His voice was matter-of-fact. And because you looked at Chairman Shin tonight like he was still a man worth respecting. There it was, the threat wrapped in silk, the practical offer with teeth underneath. What are the terms? Zainab asked. 1 year, you present publicly as his wife, attend events, support his image. In return, full financial support, resolution of your family's visa issues, legal protection, and 400 million won at the contract's end. Zainab walked to her window. Seoul glittered below her, beautiful and indifferent. She'd come here 3 years ago on a scholarship that covered tuition and nothing else. Fought for every translation job, every freelance opportunity, every moment of respect in rooms that didn't want her there. She'd built something real in this city through pure stubbornness and refusal to accept anyone's small expectations. She hadn't come here to be someone's prop. But she also knew that dreams could die from bad timing and insufficient connections. Her father, Daniel, had worked 30 years to give his family opportunities. She wouldn't watch that crumble over visa bureaucracy. I meet him first, she said. You're chairman, tonight. If I don't like what I see, no deal. Kang Hyunwoo nodded. He's waiting downstairs. The Mercedes was idling at the curb, windows dark. Zainab got in. Shin Joochan looked younger up close than he did in photographs. Maybe 34, with the kind of features that would have been handsome if they weren't currently working so hard to show nothing at all. His wheelchair was positioned in the vehicle's adapted rear section. His suit was still perfect despite the night he'd had. You wanted to see me, he said. His English was precise. Here I am. Why me? Zainab asked directly. You have money, you could hire anyone. Actresses want fame, models want exposure. Both would turn this into a story about themselves. His eyes were dark and calculating. You want security for your family. You're smart enough to understand terms. And you looked at me tonight like I was a person, not a problem to be solved or a tragedy to be pitied. Is that what your fiancé did? Former fiancé? Something sharp moved across his face. The moment I woke up unable to walk, I stopped being a person to her. I became a liability, a calculation, something to distance herself from before it damaged her own value. Zainab studied him. I have conditions. I expected you would. I keep my own work. My translation jobs, my studies, they continue. I'm not decoration. Her voice was firm. I won't be told how to speak or what to think. I won't be invisible. And when I see something wrong in your organization, you listen. Agreed, Joochan said, with one condition of my own. Which is? In public, we are absolute. No hesitation, no cracks, no distance. Whatever you think of me privately in front of the world, we are unbreakable. Zainab looked at his extended hand. This handshake would change everything, would lock her into a world she barely understood, but it would also solve problems that weren't going away on their own. She took his hand. His grip was strong. 1 year, she said. 1 year, he agreed. The wedding happened 72 hours later in a law office in Uido. No guests except Kang Hyunwoo and a lawyer who handled contracts like this often enough to find them routine. The ceremony lasted 12 minutes. The efficient had somewhere else to be. When it was done, Joochan gave her a small nod. Zainab nodded back. The press release went out within the hour. Shin Capital CEO Shin Joochan married in private ceremony. Mrs. Shin's identity shocks industry. The photo they released was powerful. Zainab standing beside Joochan's wheelchair, her hand on his shoulder, both of them looking at the camera with absolute certainty. She wore a wine-colored blazer. He wore black. Neither smiled. The internet exploded. Who is she? An African woman married to Shin Joochan. This is clearly damage control after the Jiyoung disaster. She's stunning. Where did she come from? Zainab read the comments once, then put her phone away. The Shin residence was a compound on the Han River's northern bank. Modern architecture, clean lines, 7 bedrooms, security everywhere. The staff greeted her with polite uncertainty. They didn't know what she was yet, temporary fixture or permanent change. Her room was beautiful and cold. All white stone and expensive minimalism, like a hotel suite for someone with no personality. Joochan's room was at the other end of the hall. They passed each other 3 times in 4 days, exchanged brief nods, maintained the careful distance of people sharing a stage. On the 5th day, Zainab walked into his office. Joochan was at his desk, surrounded by monitors and papers. Kang Hyunwoo stood nearby with a tablet. Neither man looked up when she entered. "Your office is set up wrong," Zainab said. Both men looked at her. "Your desk faces the window, which means you're backlit during video calls. Makes you look like a shadow. Weak." She walked the perimeter, studying the room with an urban planner's eye for space and function. "Your files are across the room, which means you have to cross the space repeatedly. Inefficient. And your camera angle is wrong. It shoots down at you, which makes everyone you talk to look down at you literally." Joochan's fingers drummed once on his desk. "This is my office. And it's designed like you've given up." She met his eyes directly. "If we're going to convince people you're still powerful, you need to start acting like it, beginning with this room." The silence stretched out. Kang Hyunwoo looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Then Joochan said, "1 hour. If I don't approve it, you put it back." Zainab got to work. She repositioned the desk for better lighting and power positioning, moved the files within arm's reach, adjusted the camera to shoot slightly upward instead of down, changed the whole energy of the space from defensive to commanding. When she finished, Joochan rolled through the reconfigured office, testing sight lines and access points. "Acceptable," he said. It wasn't enthusiastic, but it was something. Zainab started attending the morning briefings without invitation. She simply showed up, sat at the end of the conference table with her notepad, and listened with complete focus. The senior executives, 8 people who controlled everything from shipping to real estate, barely hid their irritation. She was the boss's temporary wife. They didn't need to respect her. That was their first mistake. The second mistake belonged to Director Oh Sangmin. Zainab found the discrepancy 3 weeks into her attendance. She'd been reviewing public property records, something she did automatically now, her urban planning training making her notice when numbers didn't match. Director Oh's acquisition reports quoted prices that didn't match the city's registered values. Small differences, but consistent, and they added up to roughly 800 million won over 18 months. She waited until the quarterly review, when external investors were present. Director Oh was presenting his pipeline when Zainab set down her water glass with a precise click. Every head turned. "Director Oh," she said pleasantly, "the Mapogu site valuations. There's a discrepancy between your numbers and the municipal records. Could you explain that?" Oh's smile was patronizing. "Mrs. Shin, these are complex property valuations, the technical aspects. I have a master's degree in urban planning from University College London." Zainab opened her tablet and turned it so the investors could see her comparison. "Your reported prices are consistently higher than registered values. 400 million won across 7 sites. I'd like to understand why." The room went cold. Joochan turned to O. His voice was terrifyingly calm. Get the source documents, today. It took 4 hours to confirm what Zainab had found. O had been creating false appraisals and pocketing approval fees through a shell company. He was fired by evening. That night, Joochan came to her room. You could have told me privately, he said from the doorway. In private, it's a personal problem. In front of investors, it's proof of competence. She looked up from her desk. Your board needed to see that your company catches corruption. That's worth more than protecting his feelings. Why do you care? This is temporary for you. Because I don't do things halfway. She met his gaze. And because you deserve better than what people have been giving you. He stayed at the doorway, longer than necessary. We have an event Thursday, Busan Logistics Conference. I'll prepare. I know you will, he paused. Good night, Zainab. Good night, Joochan. The Busan conference went well, too well. Zainab had memorized every attendee's background. She spoke Korean fluently, switched to English for international guests, asked smart questions that showed she'd done her research. People who came expecting a desperate man found instead a composed couple who moved through the space like they owned it. But Jiyoung's interview ran the following week. Sources close to the Geum family suggest Chairman Shin's judgment has been impaired since the accident. His rushed marriage to a foreign woman with no business connections raises serious questions about his decision-making capacity. Zainab read it at breakfast. She's smart, Zainab said. She doesn't accuse you directly, just plants enough doubt that people feel justified in their caution. Joochan stared at his untouched coffee. I know her strategy. Then you know we can't just deny it. Denials make it stronger. Zainab set down the paper. We need a better story, something so powerful that hers becomes irrelevant. What do you suggest? The Hangang Cultural Foundation benefit. 4 days from now, every important person in Seoul will be there. She looked at him steadily. We don't just attend, we show them who you really are, so clearly that her story collapses. And Jiyoung. Invite her, Zainab said. Let her watch it fail in person. The next 72 hours were a hurricane of preparation. Custom gown, memorizing profiles, venue coordination. The night before the event, Zainab found Joochan in the basement rehabilitation facility. He was at the parallel bars, sweating, trying to transfer weight from his wheelchair to his legs. His face was tight with pain and concentration. She should have left. This was private. She stepped inside instead. How long have you been doing this? She asked. He looked up, momentarily vulnerable. Since the 2nd week after we married. Why didn't you tell me? It wasn't your concern. I'm your wife. Contractually. Zainab sat on the bench. Someone cut your brake lines, didn't they? His jaw tightened. The investigation found evidence but couldn't prove who ordered it. Too many suspects with clean alibis. And Jiyoung knew. After she left, I told myself it didn't matter. Let them all think I'm finished. He looked at her, and there was something raw in his expression. Then you showed up and started fixing my office and catching thieves and looking at me like I was still worth something. And I remembered I'm tired of letting them win. Zainab felt something shift in her chest. Tomorrow, we show them you never stopped fighting. The Hangang Cultural Foundation benefit was magnificent. Restored palace, traditional architecture, glass walls, river views. Seoul's elite informal wear, champagne flowing, power and money filling every corner. Zainab wore jade silk that moved like water. Her hair was styled in elaborate twists. She wore only her wedding ring. Joochan was waiting at the main stairs. You look extraordinary, he said quietly. You look like a king. She rested her hand on his shoulder. Ready. They entered together. The effect was immediate. Every conversation paused. Every head turned. People who'd been expecting a wounded man found instead a power couple who commanded the room without effort. Zainab moved through the space with Joochan, speaking multiple languages, asking intelligent questions, subtly reinforcing his authority. They were perfect together. Jiyoung was there in pale gold. When she saw them, her expression went carefully neutral. She approached during the reception. "Joochan," she said warmly, "and Zainab, how lovely." "Lovely," Zainab agreed. Her tone was pleasant as poison, like discovering someone's true character after they've revealed it publicly. Jiyoung's smile tightened. "I'm sure Joochan has explained that our separation was mutual. He explained that you called him broken and walked away when he needed support." Zainab's voice stayed sweet. "But I suppose we all define mutual differently." Several nearby people stopped talking. Joochan's hand found Zainab's on his shoulder. His fingers curled around hers. "Your new husband is looking for you," he said to Jiyoung calmly. "Something about his committee meeting running late. Difficult week for him." Jiyoung's smile cracked. She left without another word. Then came the explosion. The force of it shook the building. The eastern wing erupted in fire and smoke. Glass shattered. People screamed. The elegant benefit transformed into chaos. Security swarmed immediately, creating human shields, trying to evacuate. Through the smoke, Zainab saw him. Director Oh Sangmin, the man she'd exposed, standing near the service entrance with his phone in his hand and satisfaction on his face. "There," she shouted. But Oh was already running. A second explosion hit the parking structure. Zainab ran toward Joochan. His wheelchair had been damaged in the first blast. Without thinking, she grabbed the handles and pushed. "We go together," she said. His security chief tried to argue. "Do what she says," Joochan commanded. They made it to an armored vehicle through smoke and broken glass and screaming. Inside, doors locked, windows bulletproof, the world finally became quiet enough to think. "Get me Oh Sangmin," Joochan said. His voice was ice. "Alive." Kang Hyunwoo was already coordinating. "We're tracking him now." Within hours, they had him. Director Oh, captured near the river, along with communications revealing a conspiracy. Oh had been working with Mun Diwook, CEO of Shin Capital's biggest competitor, and Jiyoung. The three of them had planned everything. The original car accident, Jiyoung's public departure, tonight's attack. She knew about the brake lines, Kang Hyunwoo reported grimly. She had intelligence about the first attempt 4 months before it happened. She knew someone was trying to kill you, and she said nothing. Zainab felt sick. Joochan's expression was carved from stone. Oh and Mun face full prosecution, public trial. I want everything exposed. And Jiyoung. Joochan looked at Zainab. "Nothing direct," Zainab said quietly. "Let the investigation speak for itself. Let her watch from the outside as we rebuild everything she tried to destroy. The best revenge is a future she has no part in." Joochan nodded. "Make it happen." The prosecution lasted 7 months. Director Oh got 25 years. Mun Diwook got 40. The conspiracy was exposed in excruciating detail. Every news outlet covered it. Jiyoung was never directly charged. She didn't need to be. When the trial revealed her foreknowledge, when testimony confirmed she'd known, someone was trying to murder Joochan and had chosen to profit from it instead. The public destroyed her reputation without any help. She left Korea quietly and relocated to Singapore. Meanwhile, Zainab launched her firm. Okoro Design Collective opened in Seongsudong, specializing in accessible urban design. Her first major commission was redesigning Shin Capital's headquarters. The project won the Korean Institute of Architects Award. Within 8 months, she had clients across the country. 9 months after the gala attack, Zainab came home to find Joochan waiting in the sitting room, wearing a suit at 8 in the evening. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong." He looked nervous, which she'd never seen before. "I need to do something properly." He pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring. Black diamond, oval cut, set in gold with emeralds around it, the exact color of her gala dress. He'd remembered. "I've been in this world a long time," Joochan said. "I built an empire treating people as resources or obstacles, Things to manage. He looked up at her. You're the first person who refused to be managed, who fixed my office without asking, who caught corruption I'd missed, who stayed in a burning building because you'd decided we were partners. His voice was steady and quiet. I don't know how to do romance the conventional way, but I can offer you honesty, partnership, commitment with no fine print. He held her gaze. I love you, Zainab, not as strategy, not as damage control, as the specific, extraordinary person you are. He paused. Will you choose this, choose me? Not the CEO, not the money, just me. Zainab sat on the table in front of him, so they were eye level. You want to know what you look like to me, she said. You look like someone who had every reason to quit and didn't, who let me reorganize his office because he was smart enough to trust what he didn't know. She took the ring from the box. You look like someone I've been falling in love with since the night I watched you leave a room with your dignity intact while everyone tried to take it. She put the ring on her own finger. Yes to everything. The uncertainty, the empire, the therapy at midnight, whatever enemies come next. She took his face in her hands. Yes to you. The kiss was slow and certain, and needed no explanation. The reception was held 6 weeks later at the compound. Traditional Korean lanterns hung beside Nigerian Ankara fabric. Korean food beside jollof rice and egusi soup. Zainab's father, Daniel Okoro, flew in from Lagos. He was a retired engineer with strong hands and careful eyes. When he arrived, Joochan met him at the entrance. Sir, Joochan said, extending his hand. Your daughter came here to build a future. She did that. What I offered was complicated. She made it real through her own choices. I'm asking your blessing, not because she needs permission, but because she deserves to have this celebrated by people who love her. Daniel shook his hand for a long time. Zainab, watching from the doorway, had to step away for a moment. During the evening, Joochan stood. He used a cane, titanium, light, something Zainab had helped him find. His physical therapist was nearby. The recovery had been slow and incomplete. He might never walk unassisted for long distances. But he stood. The room went quiet. A year ago, he said, voice carrying easily, I was in a hospital bed planning for a smaller future. I'd survived an accident I didn't know was intentional. I'd built an empire I thought was about to fall. I had a fiancé who'd already decided I wasn't worth staying for. He paused. I'd decided the life available to me probably wasn't worth fighting for. He looked at Zainab. Then this woman walked into my office and told me my workspace was designed wrong. She exposed corruption in front of my investors before I even knew to look for it. She defended me to men twice her age without hesitation. He smiled, genuinely. And she told me I wasn't broken, just wounded, and that there was a difference. He raised his glass. To Zainab, who built her own empire and made mine better, who stayed in burning buildings and told me hard truths and chose me every day without being asked twice. His voice was steady and real. Thank you for being who you are. I'm different because you're in my life. The applause was long and genuine. Later, they stood on the rooftop garden while the party continued below. Souls spread out from the river, lights and ambition and endless possibility. What are you thinking about? Joochan asked. The Busan waterfront project, Zainab admitted. Your logistics company has development rights. The current plans waste the space. What if instead? He laughed, real and warm and belonging only to her. Not tonight, he said. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, he agreed. Tonight I just want to stand here with you and look at the city we're going to change. His arm came around her, careful and certain. Below them, music drifted up. Korean indie and Afro beats mixed together, something that shouldn't work but absolutely did. My father told me something before the ceremony, Zainab said. He said, buildings that last are the ones where the architect knew what she was building. He meant it literally, but it meant something else to me. What? That this is what I was building toward, not just the career. This, you, us. She looked at him. I just didn't have the plans yet when I arrived. And now? Now I have excellent plans, she smiled. Very ambitious, long timeline, significant structural complexity. Sounds expensive. Worth every one. He pulled her closer, and the city shone below them. Indifferent and eternal and beautiful. Then let's build it, he said, starting tomorrow. Why not tonight? Because tonight, he held her against him, souls spreading beneath them in light and shadow. Tonight, I'm standing on a rooftop with the woman I love, and I want to remember this exact moment. When we made it. When everything that tried to break us is behind us. When everything we're going to build is ahead. Zainab closed her eyes, memorizing it all. Below them, two families from opposite sides of the world celebrated together. A Korean empire rebuilt on new foundations. An African architect who came to build something and found the scope of possibility was larger than she'd imagined. Two people who started with a contract and built something that needed no terms, no clauses, no end date. Just the daily, deliberate, luminous choice of each other. She hadn't found a home when she arrived in this city. She had built one. With her whole heart, her full attention, and absolute certainty that what you make with care is always worth making.